Today we're going to be talking about the model minority myth, its effects on Asian Americans, and how assimilation kind of plays a role into the myth. So to begin, the model minority myth is a stereotype that threatens the Asian American community. It states that Asian Americans are economically and academically more successful than any other type of minority group in America. And throughout this presentation, we're going to look at the history of the model minority myth and its impacts on mental health. So before we really begin, we need to talk and understand why and how the term Asian American came to be. So Asian American was an umbrella term and identity used, and it was created and chosen by that community instead of the previous term, which was Oriental. So in 2015, there were 22 million Asians in the United States. As of 2015, 24% of Asian Americans were Chinese. Indian Asians made up about 20% of the population, Filipinos at 19%, and then Vietnamese people, South Koreans, and Japanese people made up about 15% of that population, Asian American. So as you can see, Asian American really is an umbrella term. There are 50 ethnic subgroups within Asian American people, and about 2,000 different languages and dialects. So the model minority myth was originally created to label Asian Americans as the token immigrant or the model immigrant to succeed at having the American dream.
In his book, The Possessive Investment in Whiteness, George Lipset says, "Race is a cultural construct, but one with deadly social causes and consequences. Conscious and deliberate actions have institutionalized group identity in the United States not just through the dissemination of social stories, but also through the creation of social structures that generate economic advantages for European Americans through the possessive investment in whiteness. This is also what the model minority myth does. It puts Asian Americans closer to whiteness to erase the racism that those communities do face." The model minority myth really perpetuates whiteness as being the standard. In the article Toward a Model of White Racial Identity Development by Janet Helms, they identify 3 types of racism: individual, meaning personal attitudes and beliefs; institutional, meaning policies and laws; and then cultural, which is the social beliefs and customs. We will talk about how the model minority as an identity impacts Asian Americans and how it is inherently racist through these lenses.
So the model minority myth, after World War II, they used us to separate other people of color. They used our race to say that we were the best race, that we were the model minority because we were the smartest, we got the best jobs, we did these things, and we were able to assimilate to what their idea of what they wanted. They wanted an example to use of people of color that they could then use against all the other people of color. And what they also did is they caused infighting between our communities so that we wouldn't look at the actual problem, which was white supremacy.
Dream, and the term was created by a sociologist. His name was William Peterson. He wrote this article or paper in 2003, and in his paper he titled it The Success Story and wrote about Japanese Americans during World War II. So again, at this time, Japanese Americans were facing discrimination and racism caused by World War II. And in his paper, Peterson claimed that through hard work, Japanese Americans were able to overcome this discrimination that they faced by persevering, and they were able to have success in America. These success stories really underrepresented the experiences within the Asian American community and promoted forced assimilation to become this model minority. And not only to become this model minority, but what this really meant was to become white. Assimilation for Asian Americans created this internalized want to be white. So this myth created a divide between the different races, not only in Asian Americans, but also many other people of color to fight with each other and not the root of the issue, which is white supremacy and whiteness in America. So although this may seem like a positive stereotype, to be this model minority, I want you to think back to your own life and how you have learned and heard about Asian Americans. So what were some of the first messages that you learned about them? Where did you learn them from? Were these messages positive or were they negative? And how do these messages show up in your own teaching and in your own learning? So this stereotype often causes stress and pressure to many Asian Americans, especially students. So we cannot continue to perpetuate the model minority myth. If we continue to do this and continue the myth that all Asian Americans are high achieving and successful, we overlook the students that may need academic and social emotional help. Asian Americans are experiencing mental health issues. For example, Asian American women have high rates of mental health problems, including anxiety, depression, self-harm, and suicidal thoughts and behaviors. Women of Asian and Pacific Island descent have the highest rates of suicide across all races. Girls aged 5 to 9 for the past 70 years are the highest rates of suicide. So Asian American and Pacific Island girls that are 5 to 9 are the most likely to commit suicide, and this has been consistent for the past 70 years. Similarly, ages 20 to 69 are the second highest rates of suicide in the United States. So Asian people are put under this type of stress starting from a young age, and many people don't even know about it. Although they are put under this stress, many don't seek out mental health help. In fact, Asian people are the racial group to least likely seek help, and this is attributed to the model minority myth. They're not supposed to ask for help because they're supposed to be the best, right? So, Asian people are roughly about 3 times less likely than white Americans to seek out mental health help. And this myth only furthers the divide between Asian people and other minorities in America because it perpetuates racism, because Asian Americans, are given certain privileges that other people of color don't receive, and it really prevents this allyship between people of color, and there's no sense of belonging or an in-group, because this Asian American term is so broad, it really prevents this type of sense of belonging and in-group because it's so different. So that only makes it harder for Asian people to reach out to others when they are in need. So this only hurts the Asian American community by creating more isolation, and this, combined with the overwhelming stress and anxiety that the model minority myth creates and gives, causes so much toll on a person's mental health. And there are some things that we can do to prevent this from happening. I mean, we can reflect on our own actions and biases. We can communicate and share our stories to help others learn about the model minority myth and amplify Asian voices. Another thing we can do is to look at the policies or the lack of policies set in place that uphold the model minority myth. And we can examine the policies that uphold educational inequalities and inequities related to Asian Americans. We can stand up to anti-Asian racism. And lastly, we can challenge these negative stereotypes. Instead of internalizing this myth, we can confront it and speak up to it and challenge it. For those who are teachers, administrators, or school leaders, you can build upon your knowledge on Asian American people and provide resources for other teachers and students to learn about the model minority myth. This can promote a more inclusive school environment. The model minority myth is a problematic stereotype, and we need to learn about it in order to end it. And face the real problem of the model minority myth, which is whiteness and the forced assimilation of Asian Americans.